somewhat, hopefully we will keep on track. For those of you who are not on the board's been meeting and we have gone through this agenda, and this is our annual meeting. And number one, I want to apologize on behalf of the board and myself on the delays, and part of that we'll cover in the chair's report. But we have made some major steps forward during the course of the year, and I think that will become evident in our report. And that did cause some glitches in getting the annual meeting together and all the notices out and so forth. Wonderful technology if it works and if it's up and running. But this is our annual meeting, and I am pleased with the progress that the Rotarian Action Group or Rotary Action Group has made over the course of the last year. And I'm pleased to see some new faces. And I think we are making major steps and prepared to take strong steps in the future. And I encourage everyone who's on the call, all of our members, to become active and feel a part of this Rotary Action Group. As a lawyer, there are certain requirements that we have to take care of for the annual meeting, and we'd like to cover those items. And if you've got questions as we go along, feel free to post it in chat, and we'll hopefully take questions as you go along. As a technical matter, Jeff has sent out a draft agenda to everyone, starting with the minutes, and these are an executive summary of last year's meeting. Did everyone receive that in the notification?
Hello?
Are there any amendments to the minutes? Any changes? If there are, if you would hold your hand up or send a chat. If there are no amendments to the minutes of last year's annual meeting, and as I say, it's an executive summary, the chair would entertain a motion to approve, and you could do that by holding your hand up. Magda? That's a motion. Michael, that's a second. We've got you covered, I think, David. Any discussion on that? Then I would ask, and Jeff, last year we had electronic balloting, but this I think we could cover just by, if you would raise your hand if you are in favor of the minutes being approved. And I think that carries. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Rusty, I believe that Jeff did circulate along with the minutes, the executive summary, a financial statement that you had prepared. Did everyone receive that financial statement? And it's a 2-pager. Rusty, you want to cover the basic materials in that financial statement? Yep. As to where we are?
At the end of the fiscal year, we ended the year with $181,000 in the bank, and our net assets are the same, which means that we don't have any liabilities, we don't have any money that's due us, so that's the good thing. As far as the revenue for the year, okay, our revenue for last year came out to be about $432,000. and we spent 848,000 on programs. Okay. And so you'll see that we have a loss for the year, but it's not really a loss for the year. It's just the money that we had gotten in the year ending prior was spent in the current year. So at the end of the year, of the expenses that we had in 2021 of $852,000, 849,000 was sent out directly to programs.
Realize that we do have a 501c3 entity, which gives us tax exempt charitable deductions.
Correct.
And those funds are kept separate and accounted for, but for income tax purposes and the financial statements, they're run together. Am I correct, Ira?
Right. What it is, it's really a timing difference. If we receive money in the month of June, but we can't spend it before June 30th, it flows into the following year. Okay. In this case, in this year, we spent money from the previous year, this year, plus. Okay.
Does any member have a question in regard?
It was what you call it.
Arthur?
None.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Nope.
My name is David Harold Homer. My load number is 23301.
I'm getting some feedback somewhere, but,
AK has his hand up.
oh, okay. I'm missing KK, so. Okay.
KK, can you unmute yourself?
Good morning, guys.
I apologize. It was a mistake. I
No
had it
problem.
up from just now during the voting. I don't have anything.
Okay.
The chair would, if there are no questions for Rusty, the chair would entertain a motion to approve his financial statement or current status report. Is there a motion? Ace? Phil, did I see your hand up?
I'll second it.
Okay. Are there
Okay, sure.
further questions or discussion in regard to the finances of the RAG? Then all those in favor, if you would raise your hand. And this is approving the financial statement as presented. Opposed? It is carried. Thank you, Rusty. Last year, pursuant to the RI board and their guidelines for Rotary action groups, we approved that those financial statements on our annual report would be reviewed by a group audit committee as opposed to an independent accountant. And there's a major distinction between those two choices. One is if you use the group audit committee, that basically is services at a nominal rate or gratis. If you use an independent accountant, at least in the United States, odds are you're going to be paying for the certification and the full audit. And it is a significant cost. Yes, we had 800,000 or so flowing through last year, but that was out of the 501c3, and the dues and our operating revenues are pretty skimpy. So the board last year and this year would recommend ratification that we operate through the group audit committee versus an independent accountant in submission of the financials on our annual report. Are there questions on this procedure?
Can you clarify what this group audit committee would, how that would work?
Phil, do you want to, Phil and Rusty?
I'll take it from here. We submitted it to a 3-man audit committee. One Rotarian and 2 non-Rotarians, all CPAs. They're friends of mine, obviously. And we're waiting for the report. It should be completed today. Okay. And the report is, what they've done is they've looked at our financial statements, reviewed our minutes of the organization over the year, and just made sure that what we were doing was on the up and up, without doing a full examination of procedures and audit ramifications.
I would point out that we are required by the Internal Revenue Code to file an informational tax return, which is done on an annual basis. And we have state filings, I believe, also.
Yeah. And those get filed, somewhere between October 15th and January 15th.
Are these members of this group? In other words, are they independent or they're members of this organization?
The policy and procedure from RI disallows members of our board from sitting on the audit committee. It can be Rotarians or non-Rotarians. It may or may not be people who are members of the Rotary Action Group.
Right. And this group is, there are 3 CPAs, one of which is a member of my Rotary Club. And the other 2 are CPAs that I know personally.
Does that answer your question, Bernardo?
Yeah, thank you.
Bob, you might want to, when you said substantial amount, if we do it with an accounting firm, Rusty, what would approximately do you think that would cost us?
Yeah, just a simple audit, and it's you're talking about $15,000, $20,000 audit. Okay, if it's just a review, and that lowers it, somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000. And by doing it this way, and I have to tell you, we will be paying for the review. I have to take them out to breakfast. Okay, that's our committee. And I don't know how, it's very difficult to find CPAs to actually do something like this for nothing. It's a scramble every year.
This is an area that has concerned the RI board. When I was on the board several years ago, we discussed the clear distinction between a financial statement and review versus a full certified audit. And my own personal belief is that every 5 years, at least, with the amount of money that we have going through the 501c3, that we should look at that. I know the books and records, the board can attest to the fact that it's reviewed, and we can pinpoint to the penny where the dollars came from and where they are expended. And we'll go in the chair's report as to how those are expended. But I do believe with the amount of money that is in the 501c3, even though it's reported to IRS, et cetera, every 5 years or so, we should be trying to get a more detailed review rather than just the overview.
And I would support that. I think we have this is my first meeting, but from the numbers you've mentioned, there is a lot of money being given and passed through. So the more overall look, I think, is not sufficient. I'm curious if there would be, if there would be other firms, accounting firms, who would take on this project as a pro bono assignment.
Part of the problem is if they take it on as a pro bono, then their insurance coverage doesn't pick it up. Or I've encountered that problem in the
Right.
past. Same on legal services. There's a question of whether or not your malpractice insurance picks up if you're not charging and you don't have a file on it.
But I would imagine the same goes through for this group audit or group review, right? Their insurance would not cover it.
Yeah, in this case, what it is, it's because it's designated as a audit committee. I guess it skirts that issue.
But that is an area that the board is looking at, and I'll go into a little bit of that in the chair's report, and David and others will cover it in the business plan that we are working on.
Bob, a quick question.
Yes.
In your capacity as head of the RAGS committee, do you know if any of the other Rotary action groups is doing a full financial audit?
I don't have that information at this point. No, I don't.
If a RAG has a certain amount of revenue, okay, it would have to have an audit. Depends on, it's strictly based on revenue, according to RI.
That's one of the areas that we want to cover in the RAGS Council is finances and dues and review, et cetera. But at this point, the board would recommend that the membership at the annual meeting ratify use of the group audit committee for this year versus the independent accountants. Is there any further discussion on this? If there's no further discussion, if those who are in favor of using the group audit committee would raise their hands. And opposed. So we do have at least one negative there.
Bernardo's got his hand up.
Yes. So it is approved for this year that the board will be looking at this and we will be coming back, and that is a determination that's made by the full membership at the annual meeting.
Robert, can I apologise? It's Jimmy Johnston. I'm actually coming in on my phone because I've not managed to get home. I was stuck in traffic, so I've pulled into the side of the road. So although I can see things, I couldn't put my hand up. So it's just to let you know that I'm in favour.
Thank you, Jimmy. Good to have you with us. Let me go into the chair's update, and I'll try and keep this on track. But we do have a good number of new faces. Over the course of the last 2 years, we've been working towards expanding and growing the Rotary Action Group. And our membership is currently only at 122 from approximately 27 countries. The board membership, we did expand last year to increase it from, I think it was 9 to 15. And the nominating committee reached out, and it comes or is pulled from 8 countries. So we do have geographic representation on the board. The 501c3 entity is a very strong force, but it's somewhat localized. It has been very successful and very strong in the Caribbean area and parts of the United States. Last year, when you look at the financials and the year before, last year it was 849,000 went out in awards and grants through the 501c3. That was composed of over 20 club projects, 4 district projects, and 2 multi-district projects. It dates back, and we've got funds, roughly 65,000 of Hurricane Dorian. Haitian earthquake relief is $255,000 was raised so far. St. Vincent volcano relief is online. Then we are working with Australians for Women Health in rebuilding a women's hospital in Nepal that was destroyed following the earthquake there. And that's really a joint effort. And we've got $22,000 there. And we are holding $16,000 currently for hand wash. Those are the basic funds or sub-accounts that are held within the 501c3. We've worked on communications effort, and we'll have a separate report on iMember status. But Jimmy and others have been working on the website, the Enyo, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I truly appreciate Jimmy, Enyo, and Jeff's work on these different forms of communication. We've continued training webinars and sessions. Once again, in 70-20 and 70-30, we've had webinars and sessions for Rotarians and Rotaractors, and well over 100 people have participated in those, I believe. And my compliments to Michael and Phil for their continued efforts working with 70-20 and 70-30. We had a separate session, thanks to Enyo, with 31 district governors out of Brazil, stressing the importance of establishing teams and groupings in Brazil. And my hope is that we will be able to set up a subgroup in Brazil, a part of DNA RAG, that will work together in coordination with one another in Brazil and set a template or a pilot that we can use in other areas of the globe. Following Hurricane Ida, we were present on the Zone 30 and 31 webinar that the director put together in regard to their response to Hurricane Ida. And we've been working with a couple of the district foundation chairs, such as Frank Bradshaw and so on, and trying to put out additional communication beyond just zones 30 and 31 as to the response of the clubs and districts by the affected area. And I think that's one strong area that we've been able to maintain over the years. And that's one reason why we've still got the membership and we're in a position to expand our efforts, is that the website, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they're there, and we're communicating what different affected areas are doing in the way of projects and trying to stimulate additional projects and funding for them. Most of the United States districts and clubs have their own separate foundations. ACE is aware that following Hurricane Ida, you have a structure because they've encountered these hurricanes over the years, and the same in 70-20 and 70-30. you've got teams established, you've got policies established in those areas, and they don't need the 501c3. They have their own separate foundations, but we can put the word out as to what the projects are, and we are doing that. I think climate change is dramatic. And I sit here on the plains, the Great Plains in the United States. You have flat, absolutely flat ground. All of a sudden, within a matter of hours, you have 12 inches of rain and you have flash floods. And you had that twice in zones 30 and 31. And we were able to assist the governor, and we were able to assist the clubs in outlining what is necessary for a disaster response grant. And they have received those. But we're going to encounter more and more of those issues, and we continue to face brush fires, wildfires, volcanoes, earthquakes, and it's growing. So the importance of this Rotary Action Group can't be stressed enough. We are working on another webinar in the state of West Virginia, District 7750. We can continue to do that, and we need to reach out. We need to reach out through our business plan, which David is chairing and the board is going to be instrumental in. We put together the strategic plan side of our efforts. In other words, the vision and mission. But now we need to get into the nitty gritty of training manuals, policies and procedures and guidance that we can assist districts and clubs with, in addition to our training efforts. One of the major items that has been accomplished this last year is ascertaining a vendor to get the data information system in place. And we had Michael, Phil, and Jeff spearheading that effort, and they will talk about iMember and where we are. I'm a little disappointed in the time frame that it's taken, but I'm very pleased at what I'm hearing the database will be able to deliver for us. This coming year, I hope that the data system will be there to assist us on the financial end. For 2 years, we really haven't monitored and stimulated issuance of due statements, which I think has hurt our membership. And with iMember, the due statements will be able to be generated on a regular basis, and that will allow us, I believe, to expand our membership. But it will also give us a database for the skill sets of the individuals who are members of the Rotary Action Group, so that we can develop a group of experts, almost like the cadre. And RI and TRF are stimulating working with Rotary Action Groups in conjunction with the cadre. And we are now, every Rotary Action Group is to have a technical advisor from the cadre, so that we are working in lockstep. But this coming year, I think the key is going to be developing the business plan. We've talked about membership. Now we have to outline, here are the very specific steps. Each board member should be reaching out to 5 to 10 new members or potential new members. And the members of the Rotary Action Group itself should be reaching out and gathering new members. But we need to structure it way beyond where we are today. The board itself can't manage all this, and we need all members assistance. What we're going to need to do is structure on a regional basis so that if you have a disaster in Nepal, you have a disaster in India, you have a disaster in Africa or South America, that we have a regional team that can lead the efforts. And that's part of the business plan that we need to get in place. We need to stimulate prompt issuance of dues statements as an operational requirement. When you look last year, we had all of roughly $1,200 of dues. We had monies left over from prior year's dues, and we've expended over $2,000 on the iMember data system. So we need to be responsible and remind our members on dues. And then another major item is the 501c3. We have never charged for our operation of the 501c3. On the donor advised funds that were operated through TRF to assist disasters, to my knowledge, the donor advisory committee never charged for their services or received reimbursement on expenses. 100% went out to assist. But if we're to function in the future, we have to at least look at, okay, if it's going to cost us $15,000 to do an audit, we need to find the means to secure the $15,000. And one method would be to have a small charge or administrative fee on funds going through that 501c3 entity. Another area that the Rotary Action Group Council of Chairs is getting together on are partnerships. Partnerships between Rotary Action Groups. In other words, when we're faced with a disaster, it's not just DNA rag that's affected. It's wash rag. It's the environment. It's the health issues. And we need to be working together in collaboration with one another rather than separate silos. So the council of RAG's chairs, we're going to have webinars. We've got the first one coming up in about a month in regard to partnerships. But then we're going to get into organizational issues and membership and hopefully address those issues. That's where I see it. And there's a major thrust this coming year that I think has to be taken, and that is we need to get down to the specifics in order to make this operational beyond where we are, make it global, and make it functional where we can afford, if we need additional support in regard to finances, if we have to do that audit. And I do believe that every 5 years or so, we should be doing one. If we need additional assistance, we ought to have it. Now, we're fortunate when we used to put on webinars, or not webinars, but seminars at hotels, the cost of that was pretty heavy, and you didn't know whether you were going to recoup all your expenses. You had no idea who was going to show, how many people were going to show, and yet you had to guarantee to the hotels that you were at a certain base amount. With hybrid meetings, with webinars, you don't face those expenses. And yet, if we learn to do the job right, they are going to be every bit as effective as a face-to-face meeting. At least getting the preparation and the training materials and so on out. That's the key. But we have to look at that in the future. That's where I'm at. And if you've got questions for me, I would be glad to respond. We want to keep on track. And I would like to recognize Barry. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. And I view you as an honorary chair of this Rotary Action Group because you've made it happen in the past. Barry, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. I like what I'm hearing. I think this is such an important Rotary Action Group. And by the way, glad they changed the name to Rotary instead of Rotarian. And we really need to stay focused. And I love the idea that we're in a partnership because to me, you could do so much more as you partner. I apologize for being late. We had a meeting of past presidents. We actually had 12 past presidents get together and get caught up on what's going on, which was nice. So great to be here. Thank you for the time, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Barry.
Good morning, Barry sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's try and keep on track and move. Phil, would you give us an update on the election of directors?
Yes, we conducted the election of directors. The people who received the most votes were Jeff Brennan, Magda, me. Help me. Wait a minute. I'm having a brain cramp.
Liz?
Liz Goggins. Welcome, Liz. I saw you in here somewhere. And there was a fifth. Help me. Oh, man. Hold on a second. And
David.
Jeff's not. Jeff, you there?
I'm here.
Yeah. Who's the fifth one, Jeff?
That was David.
David Langworthy. I'm sorry. David, I didn't mean to forget you.
Well,
And
the
we
ballot
asked,
was taken and the results are in at this
Yes,
point on the
yes.
directors.
and the people who were not successful, we've asked to continue their involvement, and we would like to have them working with us on committees going forward.
We did shift the bylaws last year from a one-year term on as directors with an election of all 9 all at the same time. In order to make it more consistent, we split it into 3 classes of 5 each, serving a 3-year term. So you're not going to lose all your directors at one time. You're going to spread those over the course of time. So hopefully that will give additional people the opportunity to serve as directors as well. David, you have been working diligently on strategic plan, and now we're headed into the business plan. Could you give us an update on that?
Thank you, Bob. One of the upsides of COVID-19 is it's given the board the opportunity to work on a 5-year business or strategic and business plan. So if you look at the strategic plan, really is what we want to do, and the business plan is how we're going to do it. So we've got to recognise where we are today and where we want to get to in 5 years' time. So I won't go into the whole plan, but I'll give you the basic outline of it. The vision really of the RAG, and really if you look at the DNA RAG, it's been around for quite some time, but now it's really reinventing itself and getting a very clear focus of what its role is. So if you look at the vision, and we've got to recognise that Rotary clubs and Rotarians are always on the forefront in responding when a disaster strikes, particularly in their area. And the DNA RAG exists to assist the global Rotary network to respond in a sustainable and effective manner to each and every disaster globally. So the objective is to build a global network of Rotarians, Rotary clubs, Rotary districts, Rotary projects, and others who have the skill sets, knowledge, background, and ability to assist in disaster response, with a clear goal of ensuring that when Rotary responds to a disaster, it is effective and sustainable, and the Rotary gets recognised for its contribution, which rarely happens today. So the Rotary response is always quite significant. Now, as a RAG, we do have a weakness, Rotary operates in 220 countries and geographical areas, and our challenge is to recruit members in each country and geographical area over the next 5 years. And I believe we should have a target to grow to 1,250 members by 2027. We've got 100. To get to 250 is going to be very hard. But once we get to the 250, we'll accelerate from there, and many hands make light work. And the truth today, we don't have enough human resources to do all the jobs that we need to be done. So what is the action plan? It really is to attract new members with skill sets and assign them to committees in their particular area of expertise and region. And I believe, and the board shares that view, that one of the best opportunities will be in Houston in 2022. We plan to have a significant presence with at least 2 booths joined together, so a large booth. That would be manned by 4 members at all times while the House of Friendship is open. Plus, we'd have 2 members recruiting all the Rotary projects that operate in the disaster response area that have displays in the House of Friendship, and recruit those organisations or members of those organisations to become members of the RAG. And we've applied for a breakout session, put the hard word on a couple of RI past presidents to attend the meeting, put on a good show, get Shelterbox, Disaster Aid, Aquabox, and the others to all do a presentation, and plan to have a session where you get 500 to 800 people to attend the breakout session with a clear purpose to recruit more members. As we recruit the members with new skill sets, with the right skill set, we can assign them to committees, again, to build the network and take on those roles the board and current membership do not have the time or the numbers to perform properly. So in essence, that's the strategic plan. And if I could just talk a little bit to the business plan, which I've done some work on, and the board has done a lot of good work in these COVID times, and implemented many things. Because of COVID, the downside is we haven't really been able to put the plan into action. The iMember database is happening. We've got digital marketing materials, branding's being prepared. We've got a new logo that's been approved by the board. And we plan to launch the DNA. This is what we're going to do this year, 2021-22, to relaunch the DNA RAG with a membership drive at Houston. The standard operating disaster preparedness manuals, the training manuals and preparedness manuals are in train. And we really should have a membership target post Houston of 250. I think it's realistic and achievable. For the year 22-23, we'll have the International Convention in Melbourne, Australia. I live in Melbourne, that's my hometown, and we're going to put on a good show. I know most of the committee, the convention committee, and I'm already putting the bite on them for a breakout session. And yeah, it'll be a good chance to really recruit more members. The standard operating disaster preparedness, response and training manuals will be continued updating. And the disaster preparedness response training session programs planned and initiated. And I think we should have a membership target post Melbourne of at least 350. If I go to 23-24, again, International Convention in Singapore, and I think it'll be a good opportunity. We have KK in Malaysia, just across the road from Singapore, Alan Chen in Taiwan. It'll be an opportunity to recruit members, particularly in the Asian region, Southeast Asian region. We'll continue to develop the standard operating procedures, but have multi-language editions in preparation. The disaster preparedness response training programs in place and functioning in 5 zones. Now that's a big ask, but I think we can do it because we'll have the human resources. And I think we should have a membership post Singapore of at least 600. Again, we go to year 24-25. International Convention in Calgary, Canada. Again, we go there to recruit new members, have a breakout session. We have the continued development of the standard operating procedures, plus in additional language, and the training programs modules in place, functioning in 10 zones, and train the trainer program in place. And I think we should have a membership target post 2025, post Calgary, of at least 1,000 members. And then we go on to 2025, 2026. Again, we go to the International Convention, have our booth breakout session. We have the continued development of the standard operating procedure manuals, again in additional languages, the training programs and modules in place, an active train the trainer, ongoing and functioning in 15 zones, and a membership target of 1,250. I think if we can get the members in Houston, this is all achievable. And to do it, we will need to support and people with the skill sets globally. So thank you, Robert. Are there any questions?
This is Mary Schoenfeld, and wow, I'm just blown away by the planning process and the vision of what I'm hearing there, David. Is that plan that you've just outlined, is that written somewhere? Is there a document that outlines what you have just laid out for all of us?
In more detail, yes, Mary. There is.
Okay. I would love to get a copy of that if I could.
So if the board would like to make that available to Mary.
We'll get that out.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add that when you look at what we have done over the last few years, and in particular with 70-20 and 70-30 and the club projects, it's significant, it's detailed. We listen to the advisory committee and act pursuant to the local needs assessment that they have performed. We're only holding the money, but it is a very significant set of steps that we have taken. But we're missing the rest of the globe. And that's where we need to reach out and we need to make it happen. And I think we can. And that's the real challenge to me, is to make this a global Rotary action group, that it just can't be one side of the world in effect. It's got to be global. And we have that commitment to the rest of the Rotary family. So thank you, David. And
Bob, Jennifer's got her hand up.
Hey, yes, I am really excited about hearing about this plan as well. And I'm a geologist, a landslide geologist, and I have a group of friends that are also landslide geologists, applied geologists in general. And I feel like there's definitely an opportunity to not only increase membership in this action group, but also to increase membership in Rotary, because there is a group of folks with the skill set that I think that this action group is looking for, that want to help and perhaps don't have the international connections in order to do that. So I don't know if that's considered part of the plan as well, but I'm interested in seeing it, if you don't mind sharing it with me as well. And I'm hopeful that I can help out in some way. I don't know, this is my first attendance at one of these, and I haven't been to the webinars or anything. I think I stumbled across the booth in Toronto, and that's when I joined this action group. But I'm definitely wanting to learn more, and perhaps I was looking around on this action group's website for the list of committees that are available, or ways that committee or action group members can get more involved, and I didn't see anything. So I'd like to see a list of opportunities to get more involved, not at the board level per se, but at the more implementation side of things. Thank you for your work.
In the plan, there is a list of committees, people with it. It's a long list. We need a lot of people. We've got a big job to do, and we need to build a global organization. and we
The
have the
other-
opportunity.
David, if I may,
William has his hand up, Bob.
to me is we now have a system, iMember, that will allow us, you're a geologist. Keishoff and I have worked on rebuilding schools in Nepal, and Barry and I worked in Haiti. And a geologist, that's an important skill set that we need to know that you have. And we're now able to put it into our database. So if we're looking for somebody with that expertise, we're going to be able to find it and contact you. And that's a first step before you can develop your global grant or other projects. So those are key skill sets, and we're now going to be able to do that through the iMember. So we will get that, and we will share the committee structure and the business plan with all the membership. I would love to see it on the website. So
Yeah, Bob, Jeff has departed for the airport, but I know we've recorded this, and those suggestions will not go unheard. Both the plan that David has developed will be up on the website, and I believe we have a spreadsheet that shows the committee structure, and that should be up on the website as well. And Bob, Trenton, Michigan, William has his hand up.
William?
Yes. What are your biggest gaps for membership?
Where do you start?
Well,
we have a good foundation in 70-20, the Caribbean area, and parts, not all, parts of the United States. But there are huge segments that we haven't reached, and that's what we need to reach out to.
Bob, we have members in Brazil, in Scotland, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but it's like one member. Taiwan, Malaysia. I think we got 3 people in Australia. We've got, of the 120 people, we're spread very wide, but really, really thin.
well, I'm Rotary alumni to Indonesia after the Bantul earthquake. So I've just reached out to a couple of my friends in Indonesia and Yogyakarta area.
Yeah. Bob had mentioned that we are required to have a technical advisor from the cadre, and I reached out this week to an advisor in Sierra Leone, and I did that specifically because my Rotary Club has done a project this year with our Interact clubs, 3 of our Interact clubs in our district. Our district Interact chair is on the call here. But we purchased 490 something solar lanterns for kids so that they could study at night because they didn't have electricity in Sierra Leone. And so hopefully we can get that going. Mary has her hand up, Bob.
Mary?
Yeah, let me just, I know it's a little bit further down the agenda, and I'm sorry Jeff has stepped off, but further down the agenda, there's talking, it says Thinking Ahead, Rotary International Convention. And since David just outlined some of the goals about that convention, let me just share with you what I shared with Jeff, and that is that I've been asked to speak on Rotary's role in disasters in Houston. I'm still working out some of the details on that, but I want to make sure that obviously I am new to being this involved at this level, but I'm excited about all of the other pieces that go along with what the thought is about in Houston. So, and I know it's further down in the agenda.
Other comments?
Yes, if I may, Chair. Wanted to bring you up to date. I've been working in the background with the staff at Rotary International to encourage them, and the trustees have been working with me on this as well, to encourage them to change the philosophy of the Rotary Foundation Disaster Fund. And they have, it's taken a while, and they have started a pilot last month, I believe, in order to see that this can work. Basically, what I'm saying is what we need is a disaster fund where people can donate to a specific cause, not just to disasters in general. And it took a year to convince them, but they, I believe, understand that now and are willing to do it. And what they're going to do is set up a system whereby you can donate to a specific fund, and then from that fund, that area that had the disaster can draw down what they need at that $25,000 a shot rate. So I just want to say, if Mary or anybody is going to present to the Houston Convention, let's make sure we're on the same page so we don't tell Rotary International anything different, because you know, many of us, I think, feel that you can get donations for a specific disaster, but it's much more difficult to get donations for just a general fund. So trying to change that, I think we've changed it. We've got a pilot. I think it's going to work for this Rotary year, and then they will implement it. So we've made great progress in spite of the time taken. Thank you.
I think that's fantastic news to hear. Thank you, Barry. One of my concerns has always been that people are not going to be willing to just make a general contribution into a fund. Their heartstrings are touched by a specific disaster and immediately following that disaster, and they want to see the funds go into that very specific area. So there are two other areas in moving ahead, thinking ahead. We've talked on international convention, and David is assisting, taking the lead and making sure that we get into Houston and Fellowship Hall to tell our story. But there are a couple of other areas where we need to reach out to our own districts and the DISC and tell them that we're there to assist. The flash flood that occurred in my area, the sitting governor had been to a webinar that Phil and I put on in Fort Wayne 2 years ago. I think it was maybe it was 3 years now, but she remembered the content of that. And because of that, she called me, and I went over, and we were able to get the disaster response grant. But she remembered that we need to get into the districts and have the support of the district governor and get them to do a district chair for disaster assistance. And we need to get into zone institutes and get the support of the sitting director. As I talked about Hurricane Ida, that was a webinar put on by the sitting director, pulling in those who had been affected by the hurricane. So it starts at the local level with clubs and districts and moves up to the zones, and then Barry is working up at the top level with TRF. There is another area I would love to see International Assembly, but we need to work on the presidents down the line in order to make that happen. I think it's a long-term commitment, and it's a commitment by all the Rotary action groups. It's not, we aren't powerful enough to do it on our own. It should be all of us working together to stress. Most of the Rotary world doesn't even know what Rotary action groups are or the fellowships. We need to stress that, and there will be a function. We've talked at the RAGS Chair Council about having a separate function for Rotary action groups in Houston. And we're hoping to do that. It may wind up being on a Thursday in order to get it into the schedule so it doesn't conflict with too many other things that's the tough part, is there's only so much time in Houston. So I'm glad you're on the schedule, Mary. Other thoughts of places we ought to be working at and doing. And
Bob, just quickly, you mentioned that Michael and I had been doing a bunch of webinars. The most recent one we did in 70-20 and 70-30 for clubs and Rotary clubs and Rotaract clubs had 177 participants, which is pretty outstanding. I'm speaking today at noon at a Rotary club. I've been doing a bunch of those, so we just got to keep plugging away, getting the word out.
I think one of the tricks on that is with the new website from iMember. That allows people right after they get done with the webinar to get online and join. And we haven't had that ability yet. So let's move into the iMember database, and Michael and Phil and Jeff's off the line at this point, but you guys have been sort of taking the lead on that. And
I defer to Michael.
Morning, everybody. In terms of the iMember system, this Chair Bob, I think would be a partnership, because it's really between two rags, ESRAG and DNA rag, to deploy a membership system common to rags that all rags could use. There's been some development. The way we bill as a rag at different times a year is different to how clubs and districts bill their members, July 1 or January 1. And there's been a little bit of customization of software that has taken some time, but it will give us the ability. We're quite happy to manage our members better. I think one of the challenges we have had as a RAG is our ability just to scale up and manage multiple members, the communications, and this tool, I think, will help us well. The software developments have been completed. ESRAG is planning to transition this weekend at the end of September, and we are hopeful that within a month or so, DNA RAG can transition, and this will give us the ability to manage members, build them, and very importantly, organize our committees online and keep a track of the various committee proceedings. So I'm quite optimistic about it. Right? The iMember system is made by the same company that does DatDB, which I think a lot of clubs and districts use as well. Jeff Brennan on our team has been leading our efforts, with me and Phil assisting.
Thank you, Michael. Questions for Michael? I certainly appreciate. I'm really looking forward to it, because I think that's the key to our success in the future, is getting that data system in place, so that we know who's a geologist, who's got background on global grants, etc. So with that basically covers the items that I had on the agenda for the annual meeting. Is there other concern or issues or questions that you think we ought to discuss at this point in time? And perhaps what we do is this year, if we move forward on the business plan, we may be able to even have a special meeting, so to speak, to discuss the business plan amongst all the membership, if we get it in place ahead of Houston.
Bob, I see Mary and John both have their hands up.
Mary?
If my hand is still up, it's because I forgot to put it down. I apologize for that.
John's hand is up.
Okay, John?
Hey team, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just want to point out back on, I had the opportunity to call in on a couple of the strategic planning meetings on recruitment. And one thing I want to point out that I hope we can get inserted in our plan for recruiting people is I'm currently doing Afghan resettlement right now behind me with an organization called Team Rubicon. And within our barracks, there's 3 Rotarians embedded with us as part of this response group. I do a lot with the UN, and there's always 2 or 3 Rotarians amongst those groups for response organizations in the disaster world. If we could do a good job of kind of targeting and recruiting those individuals that have those connections, those partnerships, and that experience, I think that would really help out this action group. That's all I had to say.
Let me compliment Team Rubicon. The flash flood that I was referring to, immediately following that flood, Team Rubicon came in and assisted in replacing wallboard and all the mold and mildew issues that a small town was faced with. And they were excellent. To me, that was more of a first responder.
Oh, yeah.
And our Rotary Action Group is not geared strictly to being a first responder. It's geared to the long-term rebuilding. And that's why we need collaboration with the other Rotary Action Groups. One other group that's available is our former Peace Corps workers in the United States. And I'm assuming other countries have something similar. And they are looking to assist. So.
And last comment, there was a lot of reach out to NGOs on this operation for resettlement ops. If there's any Rotarians that are interested in getting involved with this, a lot of them said it's not in their wheelhouse because it hasn't existed before. So reach out to me if interested.
You might send us a note so that we might even post it on the website or Facebook.
Yeah, Bob, I'd like to mention that after the earthquake, I think within 3 days, the earthquake was the 14th of August. Within 3 days, Team Rubicon had 3 groups on the ground in Jacmel, Jeremy, and Lakai. So kudos to you guys.
Impressive group. Other questions or comments that we ought to work on?
Jimmy has his hand up.
Jimmy?
And Ilko has his hand up.
Thank you very much. I eventually got home. It's just to point out, because I was listening as I was driving home, all of the work that you've done on on the strategic plan and the business plan also included the new membership leaflet, where we're highlighting what's in it for me. In other words, for each individual Rotarian, indicating that they would have access to all the training facilities for preparedness, response, and recovery. And these were the main areas that are being highlighted. And I think that actually fits in nicely with what John was mentioning.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, Elko has his hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here for the first time. I have been a professor of international emergency management at the George Washington University. And in those days, following Hurricane Katrina, there was a lot of Rotary activity. And it resulted, and this is actually, I mean this specifically to Michael Terry Long, with the iBase that you were talking about. There was an initiative that was called the Rotary Disaster Information System at that time, RODIS, which was basically a disaster resource inventory database, which was based on the work that was done by a company called Emergency Visions. And they had this disaster resource inventory database. We tried to convert that in the direction of Rotary, but because of the response fixation, that didn't work at that time. And so I would like to refer you to the experience that was made there, because this resource inventory database sounds very similar to what you're developing within the RAG. And this is actually being implemented by the American Red Cross, as well as the state of Florida works with this resource inventory database. which was based on the work done by myself, but also particularly from Emergency Vision's perspective. International City Manager Association was involved in it as well. Public Entity Risk Institute, all American initiated, and it didn't get a global reach, but talk to the American Red Cross, talk to the state of Florida. You might benefit from their experience, and you can build your iBase in conjunction with that rather than reinvent the wheel.
Thank you. Other comments?
Bernardo's got his hand up.
Thank you. This has been a great meeting. This has been my first meeting. Can you share with us more information on where do we find the committees and the chairs that we can contact them and get more involved? Where do I find that information?
It should go on to the website as soon as we've got that rolling forward. To me, David and the business plan, once the board meets again, because we've got to get together fairly soon, we'll put a list of the committees out and put it on the website so that you can get back with us and express the desires.
Great.
Last year we had basically a sign up on different committees, and we'll try and do something similar on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, this time I meant to raise my hand. In 3 weeks, I'm presenting a workshop for the International Association of Emergency Managers, and a very international group. And my topic is service clubs and in disasters. My goal is to highlight Rotary, which is what I always do when I present this topic. Is there something specific that you would like me to weave into that presentation that talks about this effort and this rec?
I think you probably got a background. My thoughts are, number one, sitting in the middle of the plains and all of a sudden you have a flood. You don't know what the disaster may be.
Right.
You don't know when it's going to strike, but preparation is key. In other words, having communication system, thought as to how do you handle finances, who handles communication, having that team in place in order to react, and knowing where to go as to maybe the district or the club doesn't have policies in place. Well, I know that 70/20 has policies. I know that those affected by Ida in the Gulf State area have policies in place that can be used as a template, and then the clubs and district can modify it to their own purposes. But you got to have that at least basic outline ahead of time and be prepared to react.
Right.
That to me is the key.
And this is a group of professional emergency managers. I mean, that's their job. They coordinate these disasters. And what I'm going to do is I'll highlight 2 case studies that I was a part of. One of them was Rockport, Texas, following Hurricane Harvey, and Rotary's response there. And the other one that I'll highlight is Paradise, California, and the Camp Fires. And again, Rotary took a different role, a little bit more unique role in that. And also surface for this group, a Rotary project where we took a group to Haiti and trained adolescents in community emergency response teams, CERT. So those are the 3 highlights that I'll use to kind of frame, but I want to let them know about this effort, about this rag. So I'll look on the website, I'll look on some other things, and see if I can find a specific, key, a specific message to let emergency managers know that Rotary is here, first of all. It's always my message that every emergency manager in every single community around the world needs to be a part of their Rotary Club. But then also to let them know so that they have this effort on their list as they're helping to coordinate whatever needs to be coordinated for their community members. So if there is something, I put my email in the chat box. If there is something, please shoot me any kind of thoughts or ideas that you might have.
Barry, any thoughts on that? As to, I think one area that Rotary clubs have is if you're doing the planning ahead of time, you can locate where the warehouses may be.
Right.
So that you can receive items that are being shipped down.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the clubs are vitally involved in providing water or laundry facilities. Identify what your supplies, your extra that your club can provide into your community, and then let the emergency managers know ahead of time. Other thoughts? David?
Right, and every time there's a disaster, Rotarians are on the ground. Rotarians are affected by a disaster, wherever they happen. And the Rotary response, unfortunately, is disjointed. The local club will respond. The district will provide some support. Shelter box may go in if it's an international disaster. Disaster aid may go in. Aqua box may go in. But it's not a coordinated response. It's a very disjointed response. And really, if we could coordinate that response, and the RAG, once we get it set up properly, we can coordinate that response. So it's a coordinated response, and we meet the needs of the people. So it's an effective response by Rotary. All the Rotary organisations that respond, it's a coordinated response. We can connect Shelter Box with the local clubs, the district. We have all the contact details. If they need grants, district grants, or rather foundation grants, we can connect all the dots and have a coordinated response. So that's where we want to, I think the role of the RAG is to make sure that when Rotary responds to a disaster, as it does, it's a coordinated, effective and sustainable response from beginning to end, from the preparation, the response and the recovery. And we can coordinate that. And I see that's where this RAG can really become a significant part of the Rotary response, and Rotary would get the credit.
Right.
Other comments? Well, Ilko?
Yeah, just to echo David's words. I mean, that was and also what Bob Stewart was saying. That is the essence of a resource inventory database. And in terms of coordinated response, one of the projects I'm working on is to use the Beirut port explosion as a case study on what the world can learn from the lessons learned of the 150 plus Rotary clubs that have assisted at the Beirut port explosion. We're planning a webinar on that, because the 28 Rotary clubs of Beirut have formed an alliance to coordinate the assistance from abroad on site. And so I think that is an excellent example where the involvement of this RAG could not only help the local Rotary clubs get a profile on how to do it, but could also strengthen and accelerate the development of this RAG in and by itself.
Is there something written on that effort? I would love to highlight that effort at this International Conference of Emergency Managers.
Certainly, I put my contact details in the general chat. So when you have people amongst this illustrious company who would like to have more information, just fire off an email. I will respond immediately.
Bob,
Thank
Luis Umberto has his hand up.
Berta?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will try my best. Well, thank you for the opportunity to having me here. I am a Rotary actor, but I think we have a lot of energy, but sometimes we don't know how to act. And in Mexico, we have already worked on different disasters. We have disasters all years, like almost everywhere in Cancun, and then Mexico City, and then in the north. So we have a lot of things to do. I study logistics and I work in a warehouse. So I have experience in this kind of things. I do this all day. So we face some challenges for example, for money. It's really hard to do a campaign, an international campaign in Mexico, because we have to pay taxes and we try to raise money by Rotary, but it was really hard. So that's why I'm here, because I want to learn how to mix the Rotary to do good campaigns and different kind of plans. So I just wanted to say that it would be really nice to join in a committee. I hear that it's on website, but it would be also nice if you can send us to our emails, as the same as Zoom. That's why I'm here, and that's it.
Thank you. Jimmy?
Thank you very much. It was just something that Ilko said and Mary said just before him, and following on from what Lewis has just indicated. Obviously, I'm asked by the committee to put information on Facebook, and it's great if Ilko has got, immediate recognition or information on disasters, obviously in his area. But if we've got representatives from all over the world, whether it's Europe, whether it's Africa, whether it's Indonesia, if we can have these individuals constantly emailing as they hear of a disaster locally, then that gives us the opportunity to build on that, put it out there as quickly as possible, and get it spread further than what you're doing yourself. And I think that would be of great benefit to me, because Phil's given me a lot of links that he's used in the past, and John gave me a lot of links that he's used in the past. But you've got to sit and troll through them to identify which ones. So it was beneficial to put in the one in Germany about 6 weeks ago. But again, it was 2 or 3 days after it happened. It would have been great if I'd got instant notification. Then we could put it out fairly quick.
To echo that, I think one item that we've all learned is the public attention is very short-lived. And if you can get the word out on the disaster and the contact information of where to assist, in other words, if they're raising money and have a specific project, get very specific as to where do you send the money and what is the project, and get it out there quickly. The sooner the better, because 2 weeks later it's off the screen and people have forgotten about it. So the sooner we can act with details, the better.
Bob, I would like to ask this group, how many people, just show of hands real quickly, even know that there was a volcano in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in May? Crickets. Jimmy and I are the only ones that know about it. Wait, I'm sorry, Elko did. What I did was I did a little research, found I didn't know which district it was in. I reached out to 2 district governors, and as a result, we picked up a member. They didn't need assistance with that particular issue, but we're trying to help with, and this is really off the chart, but they need desks and benches and stuff for schools. They've got 60 kids in a classroom sitting on the floor. And so, we've said, we'll see what we can do to help in that regard. I mean, it's not disaster related, but it's, this is what we do in Rotary. So those are the kinds of things that happen when you reach out.
The only reason I knew was because you told me.
Well, we're coming up to about an hour and a half in this, and I think the annual meeting has been good and the conversations, and I'm glad to see new faces amongst us. And I think we're on the right path, but we need to take the steps and get that business plan in place and move forward on membership. And the membership is the same argument that we hear in Rotary general on membership. More hands make the job a lot easier. And to be truly global, we've got to increase our presence across the globe and make that happen. And that business plan can institute the change. So are there any other major items that we need to discuss? Because I would like to stay within parameters of hour and a half. And I truly appreciate everybody's attendance here. The board will make a commitment to keep you fully advised as to where we're headed on the business plan. And Mary, if we can help out in any way, just send us an email or give us a call, whatever we can do. And Barry Rassin, thank you for all your efforts in the past and what you're doing today. That is key. And I'm glad to hear on the response fund. That's great news. So if not, is there a motion to adjourn? If you'd raise your hands. Thank you so much. And you guys have a great day or evening ahead of you. And we look forward to being with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.